This is Heidi Giesbrecht at Encouragement Along the Journey. Welcome to Encouragement Along the Journey. This is Heidi Giesbrecht, and I have a room full of special guests with me today. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves.
I'm Riley. I have 3 cats as my most distinguishing feature.
My name is Robin, and I am both a traditional and digital artist.
I'm Annika. I am a service dog trainer with Sherwood Service Dogs.
I'm Cameron, and I'm Annika's boyfriend.
I'm Elizabeth, and I am a behavior consultant and a teacher.
Awesome. The reason for our getting together today was because 3 of these amazing people are actually my kids. I'm always amazed at the wisdom and the courage that they bring to life. I often wish that my clients and some of the people I interact with could learn from them. So I asked if they would be willing to be part of a podcast, and they all agreed. Cameron has graciously agreed to join us. He is actually more than just Annika's boyfriend. He is part of the family and can add some unique perspective as someone who has not been here since birth, but who knows the family really well. In the past, Elizabeth, you've often done panels. Yeah. I thought this could be kind of like a panel, so I'm actually going to let you take the lead. So take it away.
So I've been doing these panels, life all over the spectrum, trying to bring an autistic group of individuals to come, to share, to teach, to mentor others who have maybe recently been diagnosed as autistic or wondering and curious, to provide really some understanding and maybe even a sense of hope, especially for families where this can be, the start of a very overwhelming journey navigating not only diagnosis, but then the systems and the pieces that come with it. So the panel actually started almost 13 years ago. Wow. Oh, Riley's nodding. I found an old flyer for our first panel, and Riley was one of the originals, the OG, kindly dedicated some of their time and a lot of their energy to speaking on the panel. So I've had different people come and join the panel. I think I have had almost all of Heidi's adult children on the panel. Yeah. Maybe we'll get the last one day. Robin joined one time. Annika's been on a number of times as well, bringing the service dogs and that service dog perspective. So the panels have had various speakers to give different perspectives because everybody has something different to share, their own unique experiences. So we started the panels. We have spoken in schools, community, at the University of the Fraser Valley a number of times. We have also spoken for the provincial conference for the education assistants to come and actually hear from those with living expertise. And I use that term living expertise very deliberately. I've learned a lot in my journey, but I don't have that living knowledge. I believe that self-representation is important. So much so in the outdoor groups that I run as part of my practice, we have an autistic mentor in each group, because that's important. When, the younger participants have questions, they can speak to the person with the living expertise and not rely on somebody who is in that neurotypical sphere. And I remember we were talking about this podcast and I said, wouldn't it be fun to actually have you guys flip the script and ask us as neurotypicals questions that you might have? Riley's kind of not sure. I can ask some of the typical questions that we have on our panel to maybe get the conversation going. But then I would love if there's a question that either of you have about neurotypicals. We have Cameron here to give a perspective. Mm-hmm. And then myself and Heidi, I think would be quite interesting. I've known your family for a very long time. I maybe cannot even count the years at this point.
I think you were 12, so that's 13 years.
So actually knew some of you pre-diagnosis. It was a journey, I think, for your family to get your diagnoses. And I know a lot of families and a lot of young people who are newly diagnosed are curious, how do people feel about receiving a diagnosis?
So I don't actually exactly remember my diagnosis, but something that I did as a child and still exhibit this behavior to this day that really stuck out to my parents for the questions of an autism diagnosis was, does your child dress appropriately for the seasons? And I did not and do not. I will wear a tank top when it is below 0. When I was a kid, I would wear a bathing suit and rain boots in the snow or flip-flops while walking through the snow. So that was something that stuck out with of the questions with my parents. For me, I'm not exactly sure how the diagnosis changed my life, but it helped to kind of put a name to the experience.
Hmm.
So
That's,
it helped in that.
that's an interesting way to describe it. I really like that, giving a name to the experience. Now, Riley was really young when you received your diagnosis.
I think Riley was actually the oldest
Was
of
Riley?
I
the.
think I was the
'Cause-
youngest.
Yeah, because Riley, you got the first diagnosis and you were 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think second diagnosis was Caleb,
Mm.
and he was, let's say, 9, almost 10. And then third diagnosis was Annika, who was at that point almost 12.
I remember.
And then you
Yeah.
were actually the last diagnosis, and I think you were 9. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think Annika and Riley were the oldest, and Caleb and Robin were both kind of 9 to 10, kind of in that time frame.
Yeah. Monica, what do you remember about receiving your diagnosis?
Not a lot.
No.
I think it was more so impactful for my parents more than anything. So I
Mm-hmm.
just remember going to the rooms, the dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the failed diagnosis.
Oh, I think that's a whole separate podcast.
That is a whole separate
Yeah.
podcast.
Riley, do you remember receiving your diagnosis?
Yeah, I remember it vaguely at this point because it was, 13 years ago,
Mm.
and I have the memory of a sea sponge.
7 years ago.
I remember, and I don't remember who it was, but one of you read a book,
That was Riley.
Riley, and
Everyone points at Riley.
including Riley themselves.
Yes.
And you actually self-diagnosed yourself. I think you had gone to your parents and you said, this is me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it validating to have a doctor say
It was, yeah, that was definitely, like, it takes some casting my mind back, because these days it's just sort of a fact on my medical records,
Mhm.
and the sense of being a teenager is the worst thing in the world. The sense of validation is so much less important for me now, but
Yeah.
when I was 13, it was enormously, like, I have an official person saying it's not because I'm doing it wrong. It's
Yeah.
because I'm like this.
100%.
Mhm. Validation's huge, I think.
Yeah.
I remember that so vividly, Riley, because you had read, was it
Asperger's in pink.
or Asperger's in Pink? It was one of those.
It was.
And-
I remember the book.
And you read it, and it had like lists of things. And I think you identified with some of the lists when you came down and said, I need to do an assessment. I was like, okay, where did this come from? And you're like, well, I read this book and I think this is me. And it was like, oh, okay. Then I remember, because I wanted to kind of find out, like, why did you want to do the assessment? We actually had already planned an assessment. You just didn't know it at that point. And so, but I wanted to kind of get your perspective on, like, what were you seeing? What were you thinking? And you said, well, I always thought there was something wrong with me. And then I read this book and I realized there isn't. And the reason that stayed with me was because your dad had said the same thing to me years before, where he had always thought there was something wrong with him. And then in our relationship together, he realized there was actually nothing wrong with him. And so when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, we're doing an assessment. Because the crazy part of that was you guys were in a home where all of the accommodations that we were told to implement, we had already done because you guys had taught us what you needed along the way. So you were in as supportive an environment as we could conceivably create for you.
Yeah.
And even then, society was giving you these messages that there was something wrong with you because I knew those were not coming from me and Dad.
Being a child and making friends is harrowing at the best of times. Children are terrible.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be
Especially at gymnastics.
Yes, I remember some of those stories now.
I would say just children are terrible.
Yeah.
Which is because they're going through the worst stage of human existence, being a child.
And then that experience also is what made us also find out that Dad has autism and ADHD, and that him drinking coffee at a young age was actually unintentionally self-medicating.
Your dad and I have exchanged a lot of coffee memes over the past years about how much coffee we can drink. And I'm not an ADHD or autistic.
We have a
As far as we know.
Yeah.
we got him a mug a while ago, many years ago, which has the Tasmanian devil on it and says, "I do not do well with people." And it was a extremely large mug that he would fill up with coffee that I think would be usually about 3 cups of coffee
At
worth,
least, yeah. That was pretty big.
Yeah. I remember.
which he took to work,
Oh,
had
absolutely.
in the office,
Stay
at his
fo-
desk.
Stay focused at work. It's important.
Oh no, I meant the message on the mug was
Oh.
a little amusing to have at work.
Riley brought up friendships and relationships. Annika, do you remember those early friendship years?
Fridays.
I remember being excluded a lot from some of the larger spaces. We had our homeschool group though, like that, where I think there were a lot of neurodiverse people. So like it was just kind of like everyone had their own quirks.
Yep.
And everyone kind of did whatever made sense. Yeah, with homeschool spaces usually it was like it wasn't the double whammy of you're the weird kid plus you're the weird homeschooled kid. It was just like, So
You're just a kid. We just show up places, horde of children, run free.
So where do you guys find your relationships now? Your friendships, partnerships?
So, funny story with most of my friends. The 3 friends that I have that are closest to me that have been pretty long term is one of them got a autism diagnosis a little later than us, but like did eventually get that. So we kind of had that bond. Then my friend actually only recently found out being on the spectrum. My other friend, who at first did not understand and with well-meaning did say that he felt bad for me for having autism, but later realized kind of the connotations of that, and also has now realized that a lot of the behavior that both of us have exhibited is symptoms of autism. And although he doesn't have a diagnosis yet, he checks literally every box.
Where did you meet your friends?
One friend was my cousin, so that's how I met him. My other friend, we were both new at church, and I just walked up to that person and went, "I'm new at this church. Want to be friends?" And with the other friend, how I met him was during, as Riley said, being a teenager sucks. And because I'm the youngest in my family, my siblings did not want to hang out with me when I wanted to. So I went and, when playing Minecraft, made some friends that I actually still am in contact with, and even with this friend, have met in person.
So those online gaming platforms, that opportunity,
Yeah.
shared interest in Minecraft.
Shared interest, a number of them are neurodivergent as well, live various places. I think the farthest any of my online friends live is Norway.
Oh,
So scheduling time with that friend was very difficult.
I can imagine. Riley, I'm curious. You're the oldest. You're early 20s.
Mid.
How does that happen?
I'm early 20s.
13 years,
The
Elizabeth.
inexorable passage of time will come for us all.
I'm the one that's
It
24.
continues to do so.
Okay, I'm just going to ignore that whole aging thing.
Or height.
It comes for
y-
us all.
Yes. Well, nobody can see us, but I am the shortest at this table by a long shot.
No, Percy's the shortest.
Percy's so low to the ground.
The
Because
dog.
Percy's a dog. Riley, I'm really curious. Your social connections, where do you
The
connect?
dark and scary world of the internet.
But is it that dark? and
It's
scary?
not that dark and
Yeah.
scary. No, the friends I have range from known some of them for over a decade and some of them for a couple years at this point, and it's basically been branching out. It's been mostly branching out from one single social group in that I knew so and so, and then they invited me to this talk group, and there I met such and such, who invited me to this other thing, and they know person C, and at this point I have an accumulation of people, several of whom also know each other, which makes it fun because I get to hang out with multiple people at once.
You have a social group.
I have a social group.
So again, those groups of interest leading on to some of your other interests.
The initial seed was actually an autism-focused chat group,
Oh, okay.
although I'm not even in that particular group anymore, but some of the people I know from there I've known for a very long time and I'm still good friends with.
Have you had a chance to meet in person?
Yeah, I've met several of them in person. I have had a couple of them at my house, and they've been absolutely delightful.
Yeah.
And
I have to add in there as well. I know sometimes for parents, the whole kids meeting others online can be really scary. And I mean, it was a little for me as well, but we tried to do a pretty decent job of talking about safety on the internet and such. We've now met friends of all of them. Annika was the first, and it was like,
Because I
yeah,
have two in particular that I think were the main ones for you.
the very first ones.
Yeah, like
Because they were a married couple who, I know.
well, okay. Can we make this
Go ahead.
explain this so they don't sound awful?
They're amazing. They are. I'll start with that. They're amazing. They're awesome. But that first meeting when you're like, yeah, there's this couple and they're coming up from California and I'm gonna meet them in Vancouver, and I was like, no, you're not.
No,
They're gonna eat your liver and sell your lungs on the black market.
don't forget the kidneys. Kidneys are worth the line.
And then once I got to meet them, I was like, can I send you a friend request? Like, they were awesome.
Yeah, well, because like I had been watching this web series, right? Because I was training my own service dog, and I'd watched this web series of this married couple in California that was bringing awareness to puppy raising service dogs for guide dog organizations. And then they submitted their web series to a competition that was happening here in Vancouver, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're gonna be in my city. Like we followed each other, so I messaged them and I was like, oh my goodness, you guys are gonna be in Vancouver. Do you guys do meetups? And they're like, yes, we will. And I was like, Mom, I want to go meet these people. And I now work with them all these years later. I've gotten a puppy from them for my program, Hudson. But yeah, Mom was pretty sketched out that something was going to go amiss.
Well, don't forget, your mom and I are of a generation where the internet wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, the attitude that I see a lot of kids, the dominant attitude of the internet that I see kids with these days, where it's like, yeah, put your face out on the internet, your actual name on your wallet, maybe your address. No,
Your
passport.
birthday, yeah, right.
Your
Yeah.
credit
Those are
card.
secret information that level 10 friends unlock when they've known you for a while.
I remember one time with my friends is we would take screenshots in Minecraft with us hanging out, and at one point one of them gave me their email, and me, without thinking that my email had my name, I sent them the email of the photo.
Yeah.
And then just one day we're playing and they go, I got an email, who is? And says my name. And I panicked and I just message them privately and say, that is me. Please don't tell anyone that name. Please don't say that name. It was me sending you the photos. Yeah, please just do your best to forget that name. And I would actually go on to email them photos multiple times. Lovingly, She had the memory of a goldfish and would forget my name every single time. But I remember that first time I was in my room dreading it, and I think I actually walked down to my parents and went, I made a horrible mistake. I think I put my life in danger. Have I done something horrible? Am I gonna die?
I guess all our coaching works.
So
I don't know if it worked though, because I did hike with someone in the middle of nowhere from Instagram, and my parents couldn't reach me for like 5 hours.
Oops.
By that point, you had already proven yourself. We had met a number of the people you'd met online. I knew that they were pretty decent.
This
and
was when I was
yes.
about 11.
and you were fully an adult by that point. So
Adults are allowed to go hiking in the woods with strangers
Yeah.
if they want
But
to.
I remember
It's not necessarily a good idea, but they are allowed to do it.
let's make sure we leave a route and our estimated time
Yes.
with our safe
Do
person.
that, and my friend picked me up in her car, and I had never met her before. And she had her dog with her, and I had my dog, and it's fine. We just
The signal
leave.
sucked on
I-
the trail, so
I had
she
a
wasn't
similar
reachable.
experience, but I was in Vietnam.
Okay, well, I went to
And
Haiti, so that's a little different.
I was traveling on my own and I met some people and decided to go on the back of their motorbikes to their village. And so went motorbiking through the jungle to their village and stayed a few days and then went back to
I'm
where
assuming you were an adult at this point, though.
I was, but we had no cell phones and nobody knew where I was. And all that my roommates had at the time was my estimated date of return. So I also had a moment where I was like, maybe not my safest move, but met lovely people and it was very safe and it worked out well. Just because we have Cameron here, if it's
Hi.
okay to put Cameron on the hot seat. How did you two meet?
So we met at church originally, but that was before we ever actually started even considering dating. We were
Yep.
just
You
kind of
remember other
acquaintances at that point. And then I was friends with Caleb, her brother, who we eventually became mutual friends during COVID.
I infiltrated the boys group.
Annika was feeling
I was kicked out of the boys group.
Annika, just wanted something to do during lockdown and ended up playing video games with me and brother and some other friends. Yeah, through series of events, we end up kind of after the lockdown, like doing more in-person stuff and then eventually doing more just solo stuff and kind of had a whole situationship going on for a couple months there.
Yeah.
It's a long story.
Yeah.
It could be its own podcast.
But you guys met in person through Caleb
Yeah.
We met,
or
we-
church. Sorry, church.
Yeah, like we met. I mean, my family and Annika's family have kind of crossed paths a bunch of times throughout the years. Like,
starting in preschool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so he's like family.
Not
It
really.
wasn't like it was more like we knew
Yeah.
of each
Uh-huh.
other.
Like I say cross paths because we were going our own paths and then they'd meet and then separate again and then meet, separate until eventually
We ended up at the same church and stuck there for a while, and then
and
like we did the same youth group. You were friends with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you become friends with Caleb through youth, or was it through like later years of Sunday school?
I don't know if I would say that we were like friends through youth. We were more just had the same thing that we did together, but like
Existed in the same room.
video games were what made me call Caleb a friend, I'd say.
Yeah, I think
And
COVID was like huge
that
for your
was
whole group.
a lot of my friendship with him was really starting in just before COVID, like 2018.
Well, we still have Riley. Just be on that theme of friendship. I have a lot of families that ask me, will their autistic child only do well with autistic friends? So my question, do you have autistic friends? Do you have neurotypical friends?
I'm not sure if I can think of any neurotypicals. They somewhat self-selected out.
I can have
Diagnosed autistic, diagnosed.
I can add some variety here. I'd say more than half of my friends that I made online were neurotypical, but like knew people who were neurodivergent, so were a little familiar with my brand of quirkiness. I did and still do have friends who are neurotypical and will sometimes not necessarily understand how my thought process works, how I'll get from, say, a singular word to referencing an entire musical.
Fair enough. So I saw Riley counting
Yeah.
on their fingers. All neurodivergent or
All neurodivergent. I think there's one who, like, I put in the front circle. It's like, do I know for certain? Not, no. But the rest, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of just the initial seed being an autism group, and then even that branching out, because one of the other seeds was a video game interest group. But it's broadly I think the proportion of autism or ADHD is pretty near complete.
You said the neurotypical self-selected out.
That's sort of just more like, I think I'm vaguely acquainted with some who might be, but
I think in childhood you had some neurotypical friends, but those friendships
did
just,
I?
you did, yeah. But I think they didn't continue.
What about you, Annika?
I think definitely a lot of my like really close friends are ASD, ADHD, or also the chronic illness side, that kind of stuff.
All three.
Lots of overlap between all of those. But I do have neurotypical friends for sure, like through church or through Instagram. Some friends, I guess through you, some mutual friends of ours.
Yeah.
And dating a neurotypical.
Yeah.
Which could be a whole other podcast, I
Yeah.
feel. While we still have Riley, do you have any questions for the three neurotypicals at this table?
None of this.
Not at this time?
Fun.
No?
I'm pretty used to them. Definitely as a teenager, I had a lot more questions, which I asked at a lot of the panels. But at this point, it's just one of the things in the world that one deals with.
Robin, do you have any questions for the three neurotypicals?
I think mine would be that I both struggled with as a child, struggled with as a teenager, and still struggle with in adulthood is learning social cues. Because from my understanding, it's just something you learn. But to me, even as an adult, it seems there's a silent rule book that everyone in the world was given but me. People will have to be much more direct. Jingling keys to signal, please go to the car, does not work for me. Trying to redirect the conversation as, hey, can we have a moment where we're talking and you hang out with a friend or something, does not work. How did you all learn these social cues?
That's a big question.
Yeah. I think it is hard just because so much of that is just like passive learned things. It's experiences of having interactions go south and then learning from that not to do that again. But it's hard if that doesn't come as easily, I guess.
I think that a little bit of what you're describing, that trial and error piece, and then having, when you're a young child, a parent or another adult explaining to you, that was rude, or you interrupted, or giving you those cues. I know I work a lot with early years and children. They observe, and then they will try out what they've seen. They'll try out what they're observing, which I know many female-born autistics will observe and then replicate those behaviors, maybe not understanding why they're doing it, which then leads to this whole phenomenon of masking. And again, that could be a whole conversation on another day. Yeah. Oh, good podcast title.
Thank you.
I think too, what I've noted is, as Robin had pointed out, that direct teaching rather than that subtle teaching.
Yeah.
Whereas I think neurotypicals will pick up on it a little bit more, the subtleties.
Yeah.
Or if a parent says, don't do that behavior as a neurotypical, we go, okay, what else can I do? And we kind of go through this catalog of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
But for an autistic person, what I've heard is that that's not direct enough.
But I think like bouncing off of that, like I know one thing that a lot of neurotypical people do intentionally or unintentionally, is there may be subtleties, even whether it's text or in person, and it's like something that they're saying. I either overcompensate if it's like, okay, where's the in between the line for what they're actually trying to say or get across.
Yeah.
Or I just don't get it. Oh, they meant this thing point blank, and somebody looks at it, like, you'll look at a text for me. I'm like, oh yeah, like they mean this, and you're like, no, this actually means this, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Me and Annika have in our relationship like ran into issues with like communication where I will not be as direct as she needs, and it'll cause us to have to work that out.
Yeah.
Right?
You said, okay, I'll be over in 30 minutes, period. Oh no, he doesn't love me.
Yeah. I mean, Annika's also a bit of a chronic catastrophizer, so
Oh, you're letting all the secrets out.
Although it's sort of an observed fact that for a lot of people that chronic catastrophizing comes from having things go catastrophically wrong and not being able to understand why did action A, innocuous thing, lead to nobody at gymnastics wants to talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah, or I guess like if we're asking you guys questions, mine would be the not communication piece, because I like the dark communication if there's conflict, and that's probably also just part of like what mom and dad have taught us. But I want to figure out like what's going on. Oh, you hurt me. Send text. Person then doesn't ever text me again. Okay, this doesn't make sense.
I think, well, especially when we're thinking of texting and, well, I know you guys don't email as much. That's more the older crowd.
Only for work.
I sometimes struggle with a lack of tone.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Hi, Riley.
Hi,
Riley
Riley,
needs to run
thank
off,
you.
so we're losing him.
is hanging out with their internet friend.
Nice.
enjoy. I know I sometimes struggle with text
Mhm.
because there isn't tone, inflection, and there isn't the facial so that I can tell if somebody's joking. And I know lots of people use emoticons or little abbreviations.
Yeah.
And then I have to look them up to see what they mean because I don't know it instinctively. But what I have learned from some of the young people I know, autistic young people, that those can help give more understanding.
Yeah. Me and my friends definitely use like a lot of emojis for sure, or abbreviations, and it definitely helps it understand if it's like, does my friend say this thing and there's a laughing emoji? Okay, she's actually laughing at it. Or if there is no emoji, but she's kind of adding something, it's like, without the emojis. Okay, she's serious about this is an annoying thing. Okay.
Mhm.
But is it helpful having Cameron to be able to say, hey, here's this text I'm really confused by, or mom or dad?
Sometimes, I think sometimes mom and I fall into the same trap of we'll read things and I'll be like, I think this is what this person means. And mom's like, yeah, I think so. And then like the thing will actually unravel and it's like, oh, mom and I were both wrong. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes I'm a little literal as well.
Text is hard for everyone, right?
Text is hard.
It removes so much of how humans communicate
Yeah.
through nonverbal stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, even in person, there'll be things where I'm like, oh, this person said this thing. And you're like, there, and you're like, that's not what they meant. It's like, oh.
but I also probably have an easier time with that because my dad is a very sarcastic man, and I'm used to not always taking everything literally and needing to kind of be able to try and interpret stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just
I think that's one of the pieces of our family because we are greatly outnumbered. I am greatly outnumbered. Cameron and I are greatly outnumbered by all the neurodivergent people. One of the things right from the beginning with Rich was that he would say, how am I supposed to know if you don't tell me? So what you guys identified, right? And I remember him saying, I'm not a mind reader. I was like, what? Because I grew up in a family where you had to be a mind reader and you had to pay great attention to everything and you had to read between the lines and a look meant something and you knew what to do when that look came your way. And then to be in a family where a look means people are like, oh, thank goodness she's not talking, right? So yeah, so I think because of that with you guys, we did start communicating much more clearly just because of who your dad is as well. I know Robin had to run out to go get a puppy, but I know with Robin, sometimes we would say things like, hey, I know that you didn't intend to be rude. I just want you to know the way you said that, some people might hear that as rude. And I think when it comes to parents, I think that's so important not to, oh, you're being rude or you're being disrespectful, which I think sometimes is people's instinct. And that is totally not helpful because it shuts people down and it makes them feel like there's something wrong with them, But
I think it's giving people grace and believe that what they were trying to do had good intentions.
Right. I know you and I know your heart. And just so you know, your behavior came across this way or could come across this way. Maybe not to everyone, but
I use that a lot. I know you're just sharing something with me or asking me something. Someone else who doesn't know you as well might find that rude or intrusive. But I also work really hard to make sure that it's coming from a place of a relationship because I want that person to know, like, I have their back. I'm here because I know who they are. I enjoy spending time with them. I enjoy them as a human being. And I know that there isn't that intention to be unkind or intrusive. Yeah. So I think, that's where as neurotypicals to also be mindful of our language rather than coming out and saying you're being rude. It's that giving that grace and that recognition.
I'd love your perspective on that, Annika. Would you concur that, that is helpful when it's framed in that way?
Yeah, I think so. I think as an adult, sometimes it's hard because, like, there are definitely times where it's like, oh, that can come across as rude. And it's like, I'm just stating the facts, though. But, like, it does make it easier than just, like, that thing you said is mean, the end. Like, it's very, like, what's the word?
Fun?
I guess so. Like, I talk about it in counseling a lot where it's like, you're using, like, these specific words, especially like my counselor and I talk a lot about like pop psychology terms. So it's like things like you are manipulative, you are controlling. They're all very definitive.
They put you in a box.
They put you in a box, and then it's like, I think in dog training things, what are actionable things? Instead of you are manipulative, it's this action you specifically did felt manipulative to me. Like it very much signifies it versus defining it as just that is it, the end, no room.
What's really interesting about that, Annika? As you're talking, I'm thinking perspective. And what is it that neurotypicals say about autistics? They lack perspective. Well, you know what? I think a lot of neurotypicals lack perspective too. Like thinking that, you are this, you are mean, you are controlling. Yes, there are definitely times where people are doing all of those things, but there's always that piece of perspective. Something you do, in this case, hey, you said something, it felt rude, but I know who you are and I know that you're probably not trying to be rude. It's that thing of, here's how it felt on my side. Is that actually what you intended it to come across as? And I think that's what you were referring to about when there's conflict, you don't want to just get the text saying you're mean and then that's it. You're like, hey, let's talk about it. I want to hear your perspective. I want you to hear my perspective, and let's figure out how we can work this out together.
And I don't think all neurotypicals are very good at
that.
Never mind. But we're very quick. We neurotypicals
are very quick to judge others.
Very quick to judge others on that. And we're very quick, I think, sometimes to still rely on old myths and beliefs around autism.
Yeah.
And sometimes we put people in a box and become very rigid in that. And, we're one of those classic myths. Oh, all autistic people are rigid. Well, no. And when we make those absolute statements, you're manipulative, you're mean, you're rigid, we then are becoming rigid ourselves and inflexible and putting people in boxes and lacking perspective. We're doing the very same thing. I think sometimes we get a hall pass because we don't have a diagnosis. So we've lost a couple of our quasi panelists, unfortunate. One question I have, Annika, for you, and I'm sure I've asked you this in our panels before.
Oh, probably.
How important do you think it is to have a diagnosis?
Oh, this is a good one because I get asked this a lot for work too, right? Because the service dogs. I think I may have the controversial opinion. I think even in the panels we've seen that diagnosis can either be very relieving or very anguishing, right? So some people are really happy to get this diagnosis where others are not. I think having the diagnosis definitely opened doors for us to access funding and easier supports, and all these outreach programs, which is great. But I also very much believe that self-diagnosis is a valid option. And in this day and age where autism diagnosis is thousands of dollars and 2 years waiting for a lot of places, if not longer, it's even just pretty inaccessible for most people. So I think it can be useful, but isn't necessarily, depending on, even as Riley said, where you are in your stage of life. If you're an adult, it can be very validating, but at that point, you kind of don't access some of those benefits that you would if you got it younger.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a question that comes up as we have changes within our funding system and funding model. We're all kind of nodding. If somebody tells me that they are autistic, whether they have a formal diagnosis or not, I believe them.
Yeah.
But I do know that in some instances without that diagnosis, there is an inability to access funding, government programs, support. So it's always that balancing act of, can we get an assessment in a timely manner?
Yeah.
Can we actually get the diagnosis, or are we told no because you make eye contact and you're female, therefore you're not
Right.
autistic?
You sit straight up, you look vaguely in their direction.
A dog helps you feel grounded.
Yeah. Oh,
Not speaking from experience.
No, no.
so Annika,
Yes, Elizabeth.
always the last question to ask on a panel.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
You've heard it before then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one myth that you would like
Yes.
to
We've dispelled a few already, I think.
Yeah. I think one that I've seen a lot more in like some of the neurodiverse communities I'm in is that, especially this has come up a lot with the new changes coming to specifically the BC autism system, is that an individual's support needs aren't going to be the same every day. This is something Mom and I talked about a lot this week, of how it's now on a given day or a given outing, I'm going to have higher support needs and need more assistance. But other days, if it's a comfortable place around comfortable people, I'm usually lower support needs. And that, putting yourself in high functioning autism or low functioning autism or all these like different classifications, these levels. I mean, people tell me that all the time for work. My kid is level autism. And I'm like, cool. I don't know what this means. This genuinely doesn't make sense to me, because it's different every day and every individual. We've always stayed away from those labels and whatever. It's just, I am autistic or I do have autism.
Yeah.
But it's not, here's Annika, she's high functioning, she talks to people.
Yeah, well, and again, that would have depended on the moment, right?
Yeah.
Because, it varied greatly in different situations and on different days. So,
Yeah.
Oh, I remember pre-diagnosis for you.
yeah.
But you, like a lot of female-born autistics, made eye contact.
I still do. And then when I started being able to not make eye contact, people told me I was shifty, because I would be looking around and be like, "Oh, you're acting shifty. Do you have something to hide?" It's like, no.
I still remember really clearly a good friend of mine who was actually the first one who said, "I think all of your kids are on the spectrum." I'm like, "What?" But she was like, "Well, yeah, they make eye contact because you've taught them." No, I haven't. And then I very clearly remember one day I was opening the fridge and Robin was saying something. I'm like, Robin, look at me. And I went, "I've taught them." But like, didn't even realize it, right? So yeah,
Well, it's that neurotypical view of what
has to happen.
the expected behavior, what's good listening.
Well, I remember being told that I had to make eye contact as a child. So I was just doing what I had been taught, right? So
I just find it funny, Annika shifty. I
yeah,
never would have
she's
applied that.
No.
It's something I heard, though.
Yeah, it's well, again, we've talked about people are quick to judge or make an assumption. And I really appreciate how you explain support needs vary every day, which I think is important for families and care teams and teachers to hear, because it'll help explain why this child or young person is doing so well today, but next week is really struggling to be in the classroom or sit at the supper table or participate in the activity. So I really appreciate that, Annika, because I think that is something we need to keep highlighting for families.
Well, and I think too, along with that, understanding that that's not willful. Because I think a lot of people put motivation on it and say, oh, they're just trying to manipulate or they're just trying to control. And it's no, they're actually trying to exist is what they're trying to do.
I think that's a different thing we could talk about another time is like how I've experienced it many times. And I think it's unfortunately not an uncommon experience that being autistic, certain ways that we act is just placed immediately, oh, that's manipulative, or you are a manipulative person, like that there's these evil ulterior motives for control when that's not the case. I mean, I remember being a kid and wanting control to decrease stimulation, but
yeah.
But that was you trying to manage a space that may not have been ideal, which is not manipulative. It is I'm trying to cope to my very best abilities.
Yeah. Well, Annika, I have a question here at the end for you as well. This one is not one that got asked at the panel, as far as I'm aware. Maybe it did. Like I said at the beginning, I often have clients, and sometimes they don't realize they're autistic until they're adults. So they have years and years and years of messages of what's wrong with them. So if you are talking to someone, and it might be someone who's younger, who's just discovering that they're autistic, or maybe they're older and they've figured it out as an adult, what can you say to them that can give them hope and courage or affirmation? Because I think people are often really hard on themselves. And so I think hearing from someone who is autistic, something that can make people feel like, I'm okay.
And I think sometimes there's fear, and it might be fear because their family is worried. And then the child takes on, like, this is something to be scary.
So as we kind of finish up, and Robin is back and has joined us again, which is great. So we'll get Robin and Annika to answer this last question. What could you say to them that could maybe help them feel comfortable in their own skin, give them courage, confidence, encouragement, whatever that question brings to mind? I know it's kind of a big question, but what would you say?
I think just like as cliche as it sounds, that there isn't anything wrong, and these are things that just make you the only kind of you, and without autism, who knows what kind of person you'd be. You know, you could be completely different. It doesn't define you. So many years of just it felt like being the token autistic friend was the definitive state of me as a person, but that it's a part of you, but that's not the only thing about you. There's a lot more things. And that just, you know, if you need time to kind of process it and maybe grieve if it's maybe something challenging, that's okay. I know, like Elizabeth had mentioned, like possibly reassurances even for the individual or the parent. I remember working as a BI, parents being like, will my kid ever drive? Will my kid ever have a job? Maybe. They probably will, but, you know, it's going to be at their own pace when they're ready. Like, you don't have to rush to try and be something.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think mine would just be the importance of having a support network and having people that you trust to talk about whether you think that you're autistic or you know you're autistic. Sort of what Annika had said. You might not walk life at the same pace as others, and that isn't a bad thing. I felt self-conscious as a kid because I didn't learn math at the same rate as other people did, and I felt like, is there something wrong that I'm doing? Is something wrong with me? And the answer is no. And kind of what I had said earlier about it feels like for social cues, there was a book that everyone got but me. There is a quote from an anime that I like, I think kind of encapsulated with what I was thinking, which is, it's like the world is filled with monsters that only I don't understand. I'm all alone living in a world full of monsters. It can feel so isolating. But it doesn't have to, and it doesn't have to define you. It is an aspect of life the same way that, say, like someone has this really cool bag. Cool, they have that. It's not their entire being. It doesn't have to be their entire being. And you can just learn how you live life versus how others live life. Because no one lives life the same way that
Right.
others do.
Mhm.
Even people who are neurotypical, no one has the same way that they fall in love. No one has the same way that they study in school. Any of it. Everyone goes through life in the way that works for them. And for people who are neurodivergent, you might just have aspects that need a little more support, like a little more time to write down your answers during a test. You might need a little more time in between when you're learning to drive and having your full license. It is going at your pace, and it's not a problem or failing of yours if you have to change your approach. It's just being smart about it and recognizing your needs and how to handle them.
Very well said.
I have been taking notes.
Yeah, I see that.
Really, what stood out between you and your sister, so you and Annika, was both highlighting that you don't have to rush through. You can find your own pace. And I think that is so important for families, for teachers, for BIs, for community members,
Family members.
family. People will get there just at their own pace, and that is okay.
My grandma actually came to realize she doesn't have a diagnosis for it, but she's pretty sure that she has ADHD, because a lot of the things that my dad exhibited and what we have as kids and into adulthood have exhibited, she had that herself, and kind of realizing that through us, it's interesting to talk to her about it and the difference in how it was perceived back then.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Well, and Elizabeth, I have to say, you were a huge part of our journey as a family, because I remember you saying to me when the kids were younger, and I was like, how is this gonna happen? Like, will this kid ever be able to go out in public without me? And you said, your kids are gonna get there. Like, they might not do at 16 what other kids do at 16, but they're gonna be just fine. They're gonna get there. And that you holding that hope for us was really significant, because now, I mean, the reason I wanted to have them on this is because I think they're just amazing human beings. And I'm so thankful that they were willing to share some of their wisdom with us here today. And yeah, they totally have found their way. They have found their thing. I love how confidently each one of them lives being themselves. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time at Encouragement Along the Journey.